Hello, everyone, and welcome. You are the most honored guest at EVTN News, your source for Catholic news on YouTube. And there's been some stuff going on. Um, so, and I always talk about how EVTN identifies as the number one news program on the internet. However, there are plenty of others who also identify as the number one news source, and there are plenty of media outlets who identify as real news, such as the National Catholic Distorter, American Magazine. Commonweal is pretty terrible as well, but they're all communists. That's a fact. Anyway, take a look at these people who are online who are Catholics who are opposing pro life. Many of them. The ones on the far left. And speaking of life, we have the Pontifical Academy for Death. It was created by Pope John Paul II. He originally called it the Pontifical Academy for Life. But now they haven't officially renamed it yet. But when they do rename it, it will be called the Pontifical Academy for Death. And here's why. I have 4 news stories on this. The Pontifical Academy for Life is appointed to its full members Mariana Mazzucato, who teaches the economics of innovation and public value at University College London and is closely linked to the World Economic Forum. Okay, that's bad. Best known in her field for advocating for more extensive state involvement with the private sector to drive innovation, Mazzucato is reportedly admired by Bill Gates. Okay. She has also made no secret of her sympathies for a right to abortion. In June, after the U.S. Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, Mazzucato tweeted, "So good," in response to a rant by liberal commentator Anna Kasparian, who derided Christians for dictating how she should live her life when it comes to abortion and contraception. Oh. In 2016, Mazzucato tweeted, "As an atheist, I never thought I would love a pope this much. What a star," in reference to 2 comments Pope Francis made when he suggested Trump was not a Christian in 2016. Okay, so there's one. Number 2. Roberto Del Oro, a member of the Vatican's Pontifical Academy for Life, during a recent panel discussion sponsored this month by Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, Jesuit college. Del Oro, a bioethicist and theologian at the university, and 2 other Loyola Marymount panelists criticized the Supreme Court's majority opinion overturning Roe v. Wade. In prepared remarks, Del Oro attacked the Dobbs ruling for failing to uphold democracy, which he said maximizes rather than restricts a space of personal freedom for all citizens, including women. All right, so there's 2. Number 3. Among Pope Francis' new appointments to ordinary member of the Pontifical Academy for Life is Father Humberto Miguel Yanez, S.J., Jesuit, figures, a professor of moral theology at the Jesuit Pontifical Gregorian University in Rome, who holds that the use of contraception may be morally illicit under certain circumstances. Of course, it's a Jesuit who opposes Catholic doctrine. Wow, what a shock. All right, that's number 3. And now we're on number 4. And this is the 4th one that I'm talking to you about today. Okay, that doesn't mean that it's only 4 who oppose pro-life on the Pontifical Academy for Death. Professor Sheila Toulouse is the co-chair of the Nursing Now Global Campaign and Global HIV Prevention Coalition. She has a history of advocating for contraception, abortion, and policies wherein the fertility of poor people is linked to their poverty. So there's at least 4 people on the Pontifical Academy for Death who support death, and I think it's going to be 100%. I don't know how many people are actually appointed as a member, of this organization, but they're gonna have. I mean, they're gonna be forced to change their name. It's not. It's not honest. It's fake news, right? This Pontifical Academy for Life is not. That's not what it is. It's a Pontifical Academy for Death, because you have at least 4 pro-death people on it, including a Jesuit. Shocker. All right. So, the monks of Monte Cassino Abbey in Italy, you may recognize that name. It was founded by Saint Benedict himself. They elected Father Martius Wild as their new abbot in August, the 193rd successor to Saint Benedict. An Italian news outlet reports that Francis personally rejected the choice of Wild, who therefore will not become abbot despite his supposedly solid biography. No reasons are given for Francis's denial. Francis is expected to appoint a new abbot over the heads of the monks in December. So they had a process to elect an abbot, and Pope Francis arbitrarily rejected it. Oh, but remember that group of Franciscans? I forget where in Europe they were from, but there's a 300 member religious order of Franciscans who elected an openly LMNOP superior. And that's fine. But Pope Francis has no problems with the hands off on that. But with this, oh, there's a different story. Okay, papal candidates. Cardinal Fridolin Ambongo Basungu, the Archbishop of Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo, has spoken out strongly about the climate change crisis and how it is impacting the African continent in devastating ways. Okay, so he's on the C9, Pope Francis' group of cardinal advisors, 9 cardinal advisors who are supposedly closely tied to Pope Francis. And so he has a good chance of being named the next pope. He's an African, and people are saying we need an African pope. Well, guess what? You're going to get an African pope who thinks that climate change is a crisis in Africa. Seriously. It doesn't have to do with Mohammedans, or as they could be called, Saracens. It doesn't have to do with the Mohammedans taking over Africa and brutally murdering many people. No, that's not a crisis. It's the climate change crisis. That's what we need to worry about. All right, pay close attention to this Steubenville situation. Last week I said that the Diocese of Steubenville, there was a plan to merge it with the Diocese of Columbus. Now, Bishop Jeff Monforton says a plan to merge the Diocese of Steubenville into its larger neighbor could become a template for the merger of other small struggling U.S. dioceses. But more than a dozen priests of the diocese have signed a letter asking Ohio's bishops to reconsider their support for this merger. Steubenville priests and a former diocesan employee told The Pillar that the Ohio diocese has been badly mismanaged by the bishop and needs concrete changes and new leadership, not a merger. Wow. way to lose your priests. The Pillar has learned that Monforton is facing a Vatican-ordered investigation into his handling of sexual abuse allegations, while some clerics have said the bishop's management of serious financial and personnel issues should raise questions about his support for a merger. Wow. So all it takes is for the bishop to make priests angry, and look what happens. Among other issues raised, Monforton applied for a $50,000 grant to study fundraising prospects for a cathedral renovation and other diocesan projects, even after plans for the extinctive merger of the diocese were underway. So he's basically just applying for money when he knows it's not necessarily going to be used for the diocese. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Now, getting back to the first point, he said that The plans to merge the Diocese of Steubenville could become a template for the merger of other small U.S. dioceses. And I think we all need to take that seriously. I mean, this merger may not happen. This bishop may be gone long before the possibility of the merger is even, going through. But I think, you need to take a look at how big is your diocese? How many priests are in your diocese? Can you even tell? I know that there are quite a few priests who are close to retirement age, or maybe they're they're delaying their retirement to help out the diocese. I've known of at least a few cases. Now, some priests took their retirement as soon as they hit age 70, and that's what they're permitted to do. But some priests, they decided to, stay in the diocese a little longer, a little over 70, and say, hey, I'll delay my retirement and help you out. That's goodwill. I mean, that's nice. It's nice that they do that. But at the same time, they're not going to want to be they're not going to want to be a diocesan priest forever. They're not going to want to run a parish forever. And can you imagine an 80-year-old priest running a parish? How about an 85-year-old priest running a parish? I don't know that that's a good idea. But that's more and more, it seems like that's sort of what bishops are forced to do. Or they can bring in priests from foreign countries. I've seen that quite a bit too. So how many priests are in your diocese? How many parishes are going to be merged? Because you could have a 75-year-old priest covering 4 parishes. It's possible. It's entirely possible. And that's more and more what we're going to see. And these new young diocesan priests, they're going to be faced with 4 or 5 parishes that they're covering. What do? Do you have Sunday Mass at all those parishes? I don't know. It's just it's a broken system. A lot of things are broken systems, but the diocesan structure right now, you have no support from your bishop. And the Pillar actually did a study. I don't know if it was the Pillar, but I know that there was a poll, a study taken, and the Pillar did report on it that priests don't trust their bishops. What a shock. Not really. All right, anyway, moving on. According to a source, Pope Francis was aware of the preparation of a liturgy for the blessing of LMNOP couples by the Dutch-speaking bishops of Belgium, which was published on September 20th, together with a letter of explanation. Monsignor Johann Bonney, Bishop of Antwerp, said he had spoken about this project to Pope Francis, with whom he met in Rome in June, and that he was in communion with him. The process is evolving, and according to the same source, other meetings are taking place with the Pope. This is why the Belgian bishops say that they are in communion with Pope Francis. The bishops rely partly on the Pope's distance from the document by the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith, which had explicitly condemned the blessing of LMNOP couples in March 21. So, does this shock you? It shouldn't. Pope Francis is allegedly supporting this. And so, I don't know. Do you agree with Catholic doctrine or not? And so then you would naturally disagree with these Belgian bishops and then presumably disagree with Pope Francis. Then where does that leave you? The Vatican has renewed its secretive deal with the Chinese Communist Party that allows the communists the right to select the country's Catholic bishops. Since the original agreement was reached in 2018, the Vatican has appointed 6 bishops with the assent of the Communist Party, and a handful of bishops of the underground Chinese church have joined the communist-approved church, which is basically a worship of Mao and the Workers' Party. This news story was the breaking point for me. I realized that there was something seriously wrong with Pope Francis in 2018 whenever I heard about this Communist Party deal. Because anyone at any level of, reasoning can see that this is completely rotten. You don't make a deal. Every pope until now, has condemned communism, as long as communism existed. Every pope has condemned it until now. There's something terrible. Another terrible story. Archbishop Cordelleone scheduled an event to congratulate Cardinal McElroy. Good guy Cordelleone, right? It's called An Evening to Congratulate Cardinal Robert McElroy. Join Archbishop Salvatore Cordelleone for an evening celebration congratulating Cardinal McElroy on his elevation. At the Cathedral of St. Mary of the Assumption, this is in San Francisco, I believe, on October 27th, 2022, 5:30 p.m., with sung Vespers, the light reception to follow. All parishes and parishioners are welcome. I don't know if I have any viewers on the West Coast, but this might be something to attend. Not for the Vespers, but for the light reception. To see if you can maybe get some information from Cordelleone or McElroy. I would like to see someone go up to any of these bishops. Not Cordelleone, because he presumably believes in Catholic doctrines. But like McElroy, I would love to see someone go up to him and ask him point blank, do you believe that sodomy is a mortal sin? Yes or no question. And of course he would say, well, accompaniment, dialogue, encounter, that's sick. But anyway, he would say something like that, and you would say, no, it's a yes or no question. I'm just looking for a yes or no answer. Is sodomy a mortal? Do you believe sodomy is a mortal sin? And get his response. I'd be interested to, see what they have to say. I think I know what he believes, but just to hear him answer it would be telling. Also, this indicates. Now, here's a few different angles at it. It indicates that the bishops are one big network, and the good guys are not going to try to bring down the bad guys. Strickland's not part of that club, but it seems like everyone else is. I remember Bishop Paprocki, whenever Wilton Gregory was named a cardinal at the USCCB meeting, Paprocki had some nice things to say. He said, well, I'd like to congratulate Cardinal Gregory on his appointment as cardinal. We were friends in the seminary, and now it's just great to see you named a cardinal. And I said, apparently your theology is completely opposite. So why would you congratulate him? The second thought here is Archbishop Cordelleone is running for USCCB president. I don't know if I'd necessarily say running. He's one of the nominees, I would say, because I don't think you submit your name. I think someone thinks you get recommended. I don't know how that works, but he's in line. He's one of the 10 candidates for USCCB president, and so he's having a party for Cardinal McElroy. He's opposing capital punishment, which is actually Catholic doctrine, to support it. Not necessarily in individual cases, but overall. And that's just that. All right, German Archbishop Ludwig Schenk said, whoever is a Christian must stand up for freedom, for unity, for worldwide solidarity and worldwide charity. Otherwise, he does not deserve the name Christian. For example, I see right-wing extremist tendencies among certain pro-life activists. When it comes to interreligious dialogue, there too are right-wing extremist tendencies that fundamentally reject other religions because they insist solely on their perceived Catholic position. Oh boy. That's pathetic coming from an archbishop, but this is what we're going to hear more of, I think. Right-wing extremist tendencies among pro-life activists coming from an archbishop. There are bishops in the United States who agree with this. There are several I can think of right off the top of my head. And also, what did they call that? Catholic superiority, um, Catholic exclusivity. I'm not. I forget. I forget what the term they used for it. Um, Outside the church, there is no salvation, and so this German bishop is suggesting that we shouldn't fundamentally reject other religions. I mean, he's free to leave and join the Anglicans. His views would certainly be more in line with, they don't really have any religious ideas at this point. They don't really have any theology, but his views would certainly be more in line with that. All right, Cardinal Parolin spoke at the EWTN dinner in Frascati on Wednesday evening. Why did they invite Parolin? It's like the last guy I'd want speaking. Invite Cardinal Zen. Anyway, here's what he's had to say to EWTN. I would like to conclude with something particularly close to my heart. Catholic media, as you well know, has an important role in the task of the new evangelization. This is why it is good that they feel that they are an active part of the life of the Church, first of all by living in a spirit of communion with the Bishop of Rome. Oh, here you go. He's lecturing them that they need to be in communion with Pope Francis. Not in communion with the doctrines of the Church, but in communion with Francis. This is all the more urgent today in a time marked by overly dramatic debates, also within the Church, which do not even spare the person and the magisterium of the pontiff. What's the magisterium of the pontiff? Is it everything he says on an airplane interview? Oh no, I'm not in communion with Pope Francis. When Mother Angelica founded EWTN with tremendous courage and extraordinary creativity, she did so primarily to provide an instrument of good at the service of the Church and the Pope. Well, back then, she disagreed with some of the things that John Paul II did. One example, she was absolutely not a fan of altar girls. And this continues to be your greatest mission and reward, to be and to experience at the service of the Church and the successor of Peter. As St. John Paul stated, recalling Jesus' prayer for Peter, the mission entrusted to him by Jesus concerns the Church as it extends through the centuries and through human generations. The devil always seeks to sift us like wheat, but Jesus' prayer for Peter and his successors is our anchor of salvation. Salvation exists. This is sola obedientia. There is no salvation outside of obedience. In obedience alone will we be saved. Anyway, Parolin, that's embarrassing. That's pathetic. He sold out the Chinese and renewed the deal. I don't know who invited him, but that was a bad move. All right, some sad news from Ryan Grant. He said, an update for everyone who has been praying for us. When my wife, Sarah, was delivered, when she delivered her baby, she had 2 tumors removed. She has stage 3 esophageal cancer. Survival rates are not great. Please keep us in your prayers as we discern treatment, how to restructure our lives, how to pay, etc. So if you like Ryan Grant stuff online, just pay attention to that. And you know that it shows the demonic nature of the leftists, because they came and attacked Ryan Grant. A few of them, they attacked him. They said, "Oh, you shouldn't have had 9 kids, and now you're going to take care of them." And yeah, they're demonic. It's just, there's nothing. I mean, I don't know. More and more, I'm thinking there's some demonic stuff going on, and I mean, any kind of protests in favor of abortion, I wonder if how many of those people are not possessed. Obviously, there's probably not a very good number that are not possessed. Anyway, Um, okay, and then the news story. I don't think I had this in the title, but this was really a big one. Archbishop Charles Chaput said on Saturday that Joe Biden is not in communion with the Catholic faith, and that any priest who now provides communion to the president participates in his hypocrisy. So he's criticizing the Biden priests and the Biden bishops. And that would be a number of his fellow bishops. I think there were like 50 or so Biden bishops. And so that's pretty strong. Archbishop Chaput has always been known as, pretty strongly pro-life. Now, theologically speaking, you can't really say much because he also said in this, I think it was like an interview or a question and answer, he also said that in response to the Latin Mass crackdown, he said that there's some Latin Mass attendees who don't accept all of the ideas of Vatican II. He said, oh, but it was a bit harsh. The crackdown, that is. So, yeah, he's. I wouldn't necessarily call him a conservative in terms of liturgy, but in terms of pro-life, that's what he's known for. He also is apparently the one of the major, I guess, information providers to the Pillar. He was sort of like their inside contact. I'll take that for what it's worth. But anyway, he's been pretty quiet, but this is pretty strong. It got the demons fired up on Twitter. I mean, when he opposes Pope Francis, because this opposes Pope Francis, right? Francis says that priests should not deny communion to anyone. So Chaput directly opposes Pope Francis. So we're seeing some resistance. I mean, I don't know if they see themselves as being disobedient, but I do. I mean, come on. You're contradicting him. And what's he going to do? Tell you not to talk about that? Because what'll you do then? I mean, you might get on a Father Altman situation, which, for the record, I've said a number of times. I think after his first video, if the bishop told him to be quiet, he should have just said, okay. Just kind of kept quiet for a while and let everything kind of brew and build up his parish. Give fiery sermons, off the record, of course. Because there's priests that do that. And it's not just SSPX. They can kind of say whatever they want. But there's other priests that say a lot of that stuff too, off the record. Or, well, during a sermon. I mean, it is public. Anyone can go. But just no one films it and posts the video of the sermon. This leads up, though, to the USCCB meeting in, let's see, 1, 2, 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks. I think it's the week before Thanksgiving. And of course, as always, I have coverage of that. I missed the June USCCB meeting was not public. It was behind closed doors. They've done that a little bit more frequently in the recent past. It seems like that's more and more frequent, how they're doing the closed door meetings. And I wonder if Coeur de Leon was lectured at one of those closed door meetings. I really wonder. I'll bet he was. But this will be public and for the whole world to see. So Strickland usually says something. He usually seems to prepare something. He has a radio program with, is it Terry? Oh, I don't know. It's called the Bishop Strickland Show. It's on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Terry from the Terry and Jesse Show, the bald guy with glasses. But Bishop Strickland, he says, I mean, he tweets a lot of things that, are kind of eye openers with like, oh wow, he actually said that. I'm impressed. I'm impressed when I see some of his tweets. And he backs it up on his show. He talks about it. They talk about his tweets. They say, all right, what do you mean by this? So, I don't know. Strickland could always say something meaningful. Other bishops, I'm not so encouraged. I don't know. I'm not so optimistic. But you never know. There's always some stuff to come up. Mainly, it's bishops saying ridiculous stuff. Maybe some heretical stuff. Definitely in support of anti-Catholic ideas. But I don't know. I get excited for it, and then as I'm watching, my enthusiasm very much dips. But I'm bringing you the news. I mean, I'm doing this EVTN, and I'll bring you the USCCB highlights. I'll post those. I'll do a preview and a recap. I don't know how much of a preview it's going to be for this one. The pillar usually covers it too, but I bring you the video clip so you can see from the horse's mouth exactly what's being said. Don't take my word for it. Take these bishops' word for it, because that's what they're saying. And these are the leaders who are ordaining priests and kicking out seminarians and whatever. So anyway, that's the recap. This has been EVTN News. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we are the laity, and we will not be silent.